Good morning again. I would like to tell you about my favorite city, my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio. So, this is a picture of Cleveland, the downtown area. Cleveland's a pretty big city, and as you'll see today, it has a lot of great things and a lot of, well, not so great things. Its challenges, its opportunities, and I think like any place, there's good things and bad things about Cleveland. So, I hope to show you some of the good and some of the bad today. So let's start off with, well, what is Cleveland? Cleveland's a city, good. Its population 396,000, approximately 400,000, which makes it the 45th largest city in America. But the regional population, so if here on the map Cleveland is in yellow, bright yellow, the rest of these cities here are all in orange and other color yellow. These are all suburbs of Cleveland. If you were driving in your car, this is still a city. This is not farms, this is still very much city, just like in here. So the whole region has about 2 million people. So small city, big region, interesting. And about 80% of Clevelanders actually don't live in Cleveland. So I say I'm from Cleveland. The place I live is not even on this map. I live kind of like over here somewhere.
In
which
Russia.
is yes, now I live way over here. But from my house, so I live actually like right here. From my house to the center of the city to downtown, it's about a half an hour by car. And it's maybe in kilometers, it's about 50 kilometers on the freeway. About a half an hour. But I'm from Cleveland, just like all those other 80% of Clevelanders who don't actually live there. And in the big picture, so here's Cleveland on the big map. You see we are about halfway between Chicago and New York City. To Chicago, it's about 400 miles, which you can drive in, so that's 600 kilometers, which you can drive in about 6 hours, and to New York, it's a little bit more, about 8 hours by car. Also, you see we're pretty far north in America, and across Lake Erie here is Canada. So Lake Erie is very important. These are the Great Lakes here. Very important in the development of Cleveland, the reason it's a big city, the reason it exists. So we'll talk more about it. And about Lake Erie, we say Cleveland is on the north coast of America. So you know the east coast, you know the west coast. Well, here's the north coast. Almost as good, almost. But see, it's pretty. That's Lake Erie. Notice you cannot see Canada. It's a very large lake, about 60 kilometers wide. There are waves, and it's fresh water, so it's a nice place to swim. It's gotten nicer. And here's a view of Cleveland in the winter time. So you see, yes, we have winter. It gets very cold. Maybe not quite as cold as here, but cold, a lot of snow, and the lake, in a good year, freezes solid. So in a very cold winter, you can actually drive to Canada across the lake. Sometimes.
Is it allowed?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Let's talk about the weather first, because, I don't know, I think the weather's interesting in different places. And we'll start with my favorite season. Finally, it's here, spring. And the nice thing about Cleveland is, where it is latitude-wise, there are 4 distinct seasons that are all about the same length, which I think is great. I love all the seasons. People ask me, oh, what's your favorite season, Graham? Don't know, love them all. And I like when they change. And so spring starts in about March. So we have kind of a long, gray, cold winter, but in March you start to see, oh, signs, spring is here, finally. March, usually the snow melts. By the end of March, almost no snow. Sometimes we can get snow in March or April, but it's rare. It can be cold and rainy. A lot of springs, ooh, just gross, rain every day. Gray and cloudy. But by about the end of April, by this time, in Cleveland right now, all the trees have leaves, the grass is green, the flowers are out. It feels like summer almost already. And May is gorgeous. This is probably in the beginning of May. So you see flowers, trees with flowers, beautiful. Love it. Then we move into summer. So that's June, July, and August. It's almost always very sunny. So Cleveland, Allie might know, has a very bad reputation for weather. Everybody says, oh, it's so gray and rainy and Actually, Cleveland has some of the most sunny days in the summer. We have very long stretches with no clouds, very sunny, very nice. But it can be very, very hot and humid. So normal temperatures, 80 to 90 Fahrenheit, and very humid. So you walk outside and just die. I like it, but it can be very hot. You have to get used to it. And of course, summer, there's all sorts of things to do. The main thing in Cleveland, of course, that unites people is baseball. And we'll talk later about baseball, our professional teams and school teams and other things, other teams. Also, there's many different fairs and festivals throughout the summer, different events. Here you see, this is, does anyone know what holiday is this? 4th of July, of course, yes. And so here in the very center of the city, there's what we call Public Square, right here, which is the original town square. And there's my favorite building, the Terminal Tower, one of Cleveland's biggest symbols. So they close off the center of the city, everyone comes and gathers on Public Square, and we have a big fireworks show. It's very cool, very pretty for the 4th of July. Now we move into fall. Fall, okay, I said I don't have a favorite season. Fall is actually my favorite season. September, October, and November. I love it. It's really, really sunny, beautiful time. September and October, well, I was also born in October. It's my birthday month. It's the best month. And I know Russians, how many people here like fall? Oh, all right, some people. Okay, very good. I know a lot of Russians don't like fall, because here, at least from my experience, fall is fast, it's rainy, it's cold.
What's the difference between Indian summer?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. In Cleveland, yes, we have that, of course. November can be cold and gray and kind of not fun, but this Indian summer lasts from about September through the end of October. So this really long, beautiful, very sunny time. You see here the leaves all change on the trees. Every year it's just gorgeous color. And so people like to go out into parks. There's a lot of fairs and festivals also. Cleveland has many different ethnic groups. So there's Polish people, there's Greek people, there's Russian people. And they each, every weekend, there are different ethnic fairs. So you can go around to different places, try different food, see ethnic dancing. It's very interesting, it's fun. It's usually in the fall. Also there are county fairs, so many different regions around Cleveland each have their county fair. So that's farm products and tractors and races and dances and all sorts of things. So in the fall, I love it. And it's football season. So that's high school football, that's college football, that's professional football. So every weekend starting in September and going through the end of November or so is high school football season. So people usually go support their local high school team. Also there's professional football, or you can watch college football, so every weekend. So we love the fall, but eventually we get to winter. Cleveland winter is, by American standards, rough. It's about 3 months, so December starts. Usually we don't see snow in the beginning of December, but by Christmas we usually have snow. It's a sad year when there's no snow on Christmas. I hate that. And it snows a lot. And we have something we call Great Lakes Gray. So Allie's from Columbus, and people in Columbus like to say, and that's where I went to school. It's the capital of Ohio. By school I mean university. It's the capital of Ohio, about 150 miles, like 200 kilometers south of Cleveland. And people in Columbus like to say, oh, it's so gray here. Every day it's gray and cloudy. No. The difference is, in Columbus, you notice when it's cloudy. In Cleveland, you notice when it's sunny. You say, oh, I haven't seen the sun in a month. This is awesome. Because of the lake, in the winter, almost always gray. You never see the sun. And it's pretty cold. So normal winter day is somewhere between 20 and 40 Fahrenheit, so -7 to +4 Celsius. So by Russian standards, not very cold, but
Nasty weather.
Yeah, still cold. The record cold, Russians always say, no, -30 не бывает. That is true. We have -29 is our record, so maybe one day, maybe we'll be sure. I don't know. This was actually, I think this record cold was set this year, actually. I think. It was about -20 Fahrenheit this year. So, very cold this year. But normally we don't have really, really cold weather like here. And the weather kind of goes in cycles. Now, because of that lake, we get a lot of snow. Or we have a phenomenon called the snow belt. So, if you look at Cleveland, here is the west side, and then on the east side there's hills, mountains start. And so wind blows over the lake, cold wind from Canada, and the east side, where those mountains are, the air hits those mountains and we get a lot of snow. It dumps snow on us. The west side doesn't. So if you drive from one side of Cleveland to the other, on the west side of Cleveland there might be this much snow. On the east side there's like this much snow. It's interesting. It's unique. I think we get more snow than Vladimir, where I'm from. It's normal to have, you know, maybe 1 meter, 2 meters of snow on the ground. Happens every year. But the snow melts. So you see we get cold for a little bit, then warm, then cold, then warm. So it doesn't usually make giant piles. Here is my street on a pretty winter day. I like it. It's very pretty. We like snow. Now, let's talk a little bit about the history of Cleveland. So, Cleveland was founded July 22nd, 1796, by a man named Moses Cleveland. Now you notice, well, he spelled his name wrong. He did not.
Extra letter.
There's this extra letter in here, that A. Cleveland, I guess, is probably how his name was pronounced. Cleveland, Cleveland. And that's how the original city was called, with that A in there. But somewhere in about 1830, a newspaper publisher decided, I don't like that A. It's too big on the headline of the paper. So they took out the A, and everybody said, yeah, that's better. We don't need that. So we changed the name. But anyway, Moses Cleveland, with an A, it was founded as the capital of the Connecticut Western Reserve. So if you think about the United States map, Connecticut is way over, I don't know, on the east side of the country, by New York, by Massachusetts, Boston. One of the original colonies. Well, those original colonies all had areas in the frontier of the country at the time, that were for their settlers. So this area here belonged to Connecticut. It was sort of a territory. And they called it the Western Reserve. It's very important because all of these little towns in this area were planned like standard New England towns. So with nice white houses, pretty little town squares, very New England look. It looks like Boston, or small little towns. And the saying is, Moses Cleveland came and said, we'll camp here till the weather gets better. And we're still here. But, well, what happened before Moses Cleveland, that is? Who was living in Cleveland area? Well, we know that humans lived in the area that is now Ohio. Well, we have been living there for a very long time, since 10,500 BC, so many, many thousands of years. This here is, well, it's not actually in Cleveland, it's farther south from Cleveland, in the southern part of Ohio. But this is an Indian mound. We don't know exactly who built this or why, but see, it's shaped like a snake with an egg in its mouth. And there's many of those around Ohio, from early settlers of the area. Some of them are burial mounds, where people dead bodies, and some of them are ceremonial, like this. So we don't exactly understand why, but we see the traces of the people who lived there before. And Native American tribes lived in the area that is now Cleveland. There were settlements until about 1500 AD.
Well,
so imagine.
no.
Good question. Well, hold on. So imagine what was happening in Russia in 1500. So czars. You can think of which czar was there. I don't know. And well, in the Cleveland area, there were settlements, Native American tribes living in the area. But something happened in around 1500 AD. We don't know what. They abandoned their settlements. Maybe the weather changed, maybe there was a disease outbreak, no one knows. But when Europeans arrived on the shores of Lake Erie, there were no permanent settlers in the Cleveland area. So it was empty. People who lived there were just passing through. There were other Indian tribes in the state of New York, the state of Pennsylvania, other areas in Ohio, that would live there during the summer, maybe, but then they moved. So no permanent settlers. Moses Cleveland did not kick anyone off the land to live there. And Cleveland remained a small town for the first 30 years or so of its existence, just a little cute New England town. You see in 1830, population of just over 1,000 people. But, big development. This here, this line, is a canal. And it allowed, so this great new state of Ohio was founded in 1803, but it was very isolated. People who lived there, the farmers, they could not get their farm goods to market. So, town stayed very small. It was difficult to live there, very difficult. Well, in 1833, they opened this canal that connected, so here's the Ohio River with Lake Erie. So now, all of these farm goods, the corn, the cows, everything, could get to market, to the big cities. And so now little towns along this route started to grow. People could sell their goods, get money. And Cleveland emerged as the main port city. So the little canal boats sailed into Cleveland, and all the stuff was loaded onto bigger boats. So you see, from 1,075 to 160,000 people in just 50 years. Huge growth, very big growth. And with that, especially after the end of the Civil War in America, so the 1860s, Cleveland became a center of industry. So big steel mills to build, or to make metal, to build, well, starting in the Civil War, weapons, and then more bridges, buildings, oil, chemicals, cars, clothes, huge factories were built. And that's when the population really started to grow. And certain industrialists became very, very rich. And Cleveland's legacy, Cleveland is a testament to the legacy of these people. People like John D. Rockefeller, maybe someone has heard of him. Extremely rich man, and these people later gave a lot of money to start institutions. So we have an art museum, we have a very famous opera house, we have zoos, parks, that were all started by these very rich people. So the legacy of these people continues today. Now, with all of that, with all that industry, we needed people to work. And many of those people were immigrants, especially from Eastern and Southern Europe. So many, many Germans. Germans are the largest group in Cleveland. I'm German by ancestry, although my family did not come to Cleveland. A lot of people from Poland, people from Hungary. Interestingly, at one time, Cleveland was the biggest group of Hungarians outside of Hungary. Wow. A lot of Czechs, a lot of Slovaks. Look, there were more Slovaks in Cleveland than in any other city in the world, and that includes Slovakia. So more Slovaks in Cleveland than in Slovakia. Wow. A lot of Italians, huge Italian population. A lot of Ukrainians, and some Russians. A smaller group, never as many, but definitely, there is a Russian population. And these immigrants brought their traditions to Cleveland and have really influenced the feeling of what it means to be Cleveland, the culture of Cleveland. Here, this is a church that was built by Polish immigrants. It's the Central Polish Church in Cleveland, so a beautiful cathedral.
Catholic.
Yes, yes. Or this is a Russian Orthodox cathedral that was built in about 1905 by Russian and Ukrainian immigrants to the Cleveland area. There's actually two or three of these churches in Cleveland. So Cleveland continued to grow and grow and grow and grow, and by 1950, Cleveland had almost 1 million people, almost. It was America's 5th largest city. Remember, today it's the 45th largest city. The economy was very strong, our sports teams were winning, and the electric utilities, so the people who make light and power, launched a slogan that said, "Cleveland is the best location in the nation." And the legend says that some other city, probably Detroit, I don't know, said, "That's not true. It's impossible. You have to prove you're the best location in the nation." They took us to court, and the legend says the judge ruled, no, Cleveland is the best location. I don't think it's true, but it's a good story. So, Cleveland's almost 1 million people, but with all that industry came some problems, and we see Cleveland has had a decline. And so the economy started to slow down in the 1960s and 70s. And we can understand why. So imagine 1950, the world in 1950. Europe is destroyed. The war has completely destroyed the continent of Europe. So Cleveland and cities like Detroit and Buffalo, they were the factories of the world, supplying not just America, but Europe. So we were making far more than the United States could produce. But by the 1960s and 1970s, factories in Europe were rebuilt. Cities in Europe were rebuilt. Asian factories started to open. Japan first, then China, then Vietnam. Well, that meant that these older, big factories that were too big in Cleveland started to close. And people lost their jobs, and it caused a lot of social problems in Cleveland. So when people aren't working, big problems start to develop. And so families with money started to move out into the suburbs, which at first made sense. Of course, an industrial city is not a very nice place to live, very dirty, very polluted, very noisy, very crowded in Cleveland. So at first it was okay. But as people with money start to move out, that means only the people who can't leave are left. So only poor people were left in the city of Cleveland. And you see, wow, so in 1950, almost 1 million people, to every decade, huge population loss, down to about 400,000. So less than half of the population. Same size, less than half. And a lot of people moved into other cities around Cleveland, so stayed in the area, but actually the region itself has lost population also in the last 50 years. So people have moved out of the Cleveland area. And this causes, so same size city, half the people, a lot of abandoned buildings. So, not very pretty neighborhoods, only poor people are left, people can't maintain these houses. So this is a house for 2 families, or maybe even 3. You see now no one lives there. There's huge areas that are like this. Or next slide, a lot of abandoned factories. Here, maybe you can see the street sign says Utopia. Doesn't look very utopian there. A lot of areas like that. A very serious challenge because no one knows what to do with these abandoned houses. Yeah?
I'm sorry. What's the cost of this house?
Well, you could probably buy that for, well, there is really no market for it, but you could probably buy it for about $5,000 or so.
5,000?
Probably. Maybe 10, I don't know.
For one family?
Probably.
1 or 2 family?
1 or 2 or 3.
Well, yeah, this is probably a 2-family house originally, hard to say. I think the current, in the city of Cleveland, the average cost of a house is about $80,000, which is very cheap.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in a similar house, a little bit nicer of a neighborhood, but it's her and her friend, and they live in a big house, and they pay $500 every month. It's ridiculously cheap.
Very, very cheap. Which, of course, it's a huge problem because we have a huge surplus of houses that no one wants. Who's going to buy this house in a neighborhood where every house is like that? Huge, huge problem. The city now is tearing down, just demolishing a lot of houses because no one needs them. People can do bad things in these houses, lots of criminal activity. They burn. It's a big problem. And the city actually says that each house is worth $10,000 to tear down. So if you can pay more than $10,000, well, maybe that's not very smart. But it does create a lot of opportunity because young people can start to move into these very, very cheap houses. And a lot of artists, a lot of writers, a lot of people who, in a city like New York or Chicago, can't afford anything, can move to Cleveland, buy a house, and start their work. So for every bad thing, there is a positive side. Now, let's talk a little bit about the consequence of that industry. So big, heavy industry, lots of steel mills, chemical plants, tire factories, auto companies, I don't know, everything. In Cleveland, well, Cleveland's air and water was extremely polluted. By the 1950s, so this is one of Cleveland's big steel mills here, you see this water coming out. Who knows what's in there? Nothing good, I'm sure. This is the Cuyahoga River, which Cleveland is situated on, a little river that flows into Lake Erie. I remember one of my teachers in high school. He grew up not in Cleveland, but on the shores of Lake Erie. So Cleveland and then many other little industrial cities on the lake just threw everything into Lake Erie. And he lived near a company that made dye and paint. And he always knew what color dye or paint they were making that day, because that's what color the lake was. So, oh, today's green day, today's red day. That's bad. And so the Cuyahoga River, this little river, well, always lots of oil, lots of chemicals on top of the river, and river fires were not uncommon. So a spark from the steel mill, or somebody throws a cigarette, or who knows. The surface of the river, the oil, starts to burn. Oops. Cleveland actually has a special fire boat for this, for putting out fires on the river. Not really uncommon. They happened in Pittsburgh and Detroit and Buffalo. Nothing really out of the ordinary. But in 1969, a national news reporter was in Cleveland for something else. But whatever he was supposed to be there for didn't happen. So he was bored and he needed a story. And he happened to hear on the radio, the police radio, that, oh, there's a river fire, we should go put it out. So he said, what? The river here burns? Went down and took this picture, which became a headline of a national news magazine, and people said, what is happening? You have a river that burns? It was very embarrassing for the city of Cleveland, of course, and there were good results, though, because it led to the Clean Water Act and many other laws that forbid industry from polluting, and now the Cuyahoga River definitely doesn't burn. It's actually a lot cleaner. I wouldn't swim there, but it's still a lot cleaner. And so we have a river that burns, and Cleveland became the butt of a lot of the nation's jokes in the 70s and 80s. So we have a river that burns. This is our mayor in, I think, the 1970s. He was at a factory, and he was demonstrating a welding torch or something. And a spark fell in his hair, and his hair started to burn. So our river burns, our mayor's hair burns, and just a lot of kind of low-class jokes. The mayor's wife, the same mayor, refused the First Lady, the wife of the United States President, invited her to dinner in the White House. You don't turn that down. Well, she said, oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't go. It's my bowling night. Oh, so embarrassing. So a lot of jokes about Cleveland. But Cleveland now likes to call itself the comeback city. So there are a lot of efforts to revitalize the city, to get it moving again, and a lot of cool stuff has happened in Cleveland in the last 10 years. In fact, my friend says, Graham, when you come back, you won't even recognize Cleveland. So much has changed. We'll see. But there have been a lot of new stadiums built, a new convention center, a lot of new houses and apartments, and some neighborhoods are coming back. So right here, this is in the downtown area of the city. I remember this street, maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago. You did not want to be there after dark. Everything was closed, scary, dark, not a pleasant place at night. Now, look, it's changed. There's seating outside, restaurants, there's a bowling alley, keeping it Cleveland, and lots of different bars and places. So many new, interesting neighborhoods have happened in the last 10 years. Let's talk about a few. Of course, there's downtown, so that's the traditional business center of the city, and it's where, I think, almost 200,000 people work downtown every day. And now, a lot of people are moving downtown. So for people my age, it's very popular to try to find an apartment or a condominium downtown. It's actually very difficult. There are huge waiting lists. My friend and I want to move into an apartment there, just to rent an apartment. There's an 8-month waiting list for an apartment. It's crazy. So that's very good. That's a good sign. Here is Cleveland's public square. So the original little New England town, that's the public square. Today, it's surrounded by big skyscrapers and buildings, but still, like here, this is before Christmas, around the holidays, so lots of lights. In the summer, there are concerts there, the 4th of July concert, so our orchestra does a huge open-air free concert for the people. It's great. Anyway, Moving a little bit to the east, there's University Circle, which is a neighborhood that has Cleveland's main prestigious university and a lot of different museums. And so the university was started by one of those very rich industrialists. That's our art museum, also started by a very rich industrialist. And there's a few other museums. Our art museum, which is one of the biggest in the country, and I think also the world, is free. So Clevelanders don't understand how nice it is. I remember I went to Columbus, to the art museum there. The art museum's small. I had to pay, I think, $15. I said, what? I don't pay money. Well, it's an art museum. It should be free. Because in Cleveland, that whoever the rich industrialist who started the museum said, here's a lot of money. One condition is this museum will always be free for everyone. So very nice. Here inside the museum, my favorite room, one of the most famous rooms, is the armor court. So lots of arms and armor from medieval Europe. Really cool to see. Of course, all the boys like to go to that room. Here, this building just opened actually. This is a new Museum of Modern Art. Really cool building. I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to go. It's on my list. Very interesting. And here is the home of the world-renowned Cleveland Orchestra. People say it's one of the top 5 orchestras in the world. I don't know, maybe it is. They play in this beautiful concert hall, and it's very good. I mean, awesome. And right up the hill from University Circle is a neighborhood called Little Italy. So of course, maybe 100 years ago, every ethnic group had its own little neighborhood. So there was Little Italy, Little Hungary, Little Germany, Little Poland, Little Ukraine even. Today, most of those neighborhoods don't exist, but Little Italy still exists. And the reason is there's a big cemetery right next to this. And so to build that cemetery, to carve all those marble gravestones and the buildings, people hired a lot of craftsmen from Italy. A lot of people who made beautiful monuments in Italy came to work in Cleveland. And they created this very tight-knit community that has remained to today. I remember my grandfather growing up said, he was actually very worried about going to Little Italy. He said, "Oh, there's mafia there." That's how real it was. That's how real. Yes. So it's beautiful. Today, on a nice summer day, you can walk down the street, little bakeries, restaurants. It reminds me a lot of Rome. I was in Rome this December, and I mean, I love Italian food. The food there is amazingly good. The pizza is, wow, I can't say. But Cleveland's close with its pizza, actually. I was not that surprised. I said, but you know, this is maybe this much better than what I can do. It's awesome. It's very good. Kind of in a different part of town, we have the main market of the city of Cleveland. And so every American city, of course, 100 years ago, had many different public markets where farmers came to sell their goods, meats, vegetables, everything. Nothing surprising, just like here. But a lot of cities closed their markets down. When supermarkets opened up, people, it's more convenient, you know what you're buying. Cleveland kept this one main market here. It's a big, beautiful brick building. And today, it's even more popular than ever. Here, you can buy all sorts of different things. Meats, fresh vegetables, lots of different prepared foods, things you can't find anywhere else. So, for a lot of Clevelanders who love food, the thing to do is, early on Sunday morning, go to the West Side Market, try to find a parking space, it's impossible, buy all the different ingredients they want and make something really unusual, very out of the ordinary. I love that place. Now, there are many different suburbs of Cleveland, and a lot of them just kind of look like suburbs, nothing really interesting. But there's a few that are really remarkable, beautiful places. This is the suburb of Shaker Heights, right outside of Cleveland. And this is where a lot of rich lawyers, bankers, doctors, engineers lived in maybe about the 1920s. So a lot of very nice big houses, very well built, beautiful suburb, lots of trees, very quiet, ideal. It's a cool place. And there's this place, which is extremely beautiful and awesome, and it's also where I'm from, so I like it a lot. So a little town that today is part of the Cleveland area. So you see we have our little town triangle actually, and around this waterfall here. So this is where I'm from actually. Now, around Cleveland, so planners maybe 100 years ago realized that Cleveland was growing very fast, and a lot of industry, and these planners, these officials, realized how important it was for people to have a place to get out of the city, to get away from the noise. And so all around the city, there's this ring of parks here. They're beautiful parks. They follow usually river valleys or different forest areas. I think some of the most beautiful areas in the world, but hey, that's just me. You like the place you're from. But, for example, you can ride your bike all around the city of Cleveland. It's about an 80-mile trail, completely uninterrupted of parks. So wherever you are in Cleveland, there's a park very close, a big park. And we also have a zoo, a pretty large zoo. Very cute, very cute. Don't know what else I can say. No, Cleveland, of course, ooh, we have that long winter, it's kind of nasty. So at the zoo, there's something called the rainforest. So the rainforest is this big glass building that, well, is like a rainforest on the inside. And it's heated to, I don't know, I think about 88 Fahrenheit, so maybe about 30 degrees Celsius all year round. So, oh, it's gray, it's cold, it's nasty. You can always go in there, it's beautiful. And see, well, little frogs like this guy, very cute. And lots of exhibits about the rainforest, tropical environments. I remember we went here when I was in school. It was a normal field trip for our school. Go to the rainforest, see the frogs, see the snakes, learn about how bad the situation in the rainforest is. Very cool place. Now, another very forward-thinking idea that a Cleveland leader had was, so remember that old canal that connected Cleveland to the Ohio River? Well, by, I don't know, 1913, it wasn't used anymore. A couple of floods, the railroads, so there was just this kind of big ditch that nobody knew what to do with, a lot of water, a lot of mosquitoes, bleh, gross. And, of course, a canal, there's a path that runs next to the canal for the mules to pull the boats. Well, somebody thought, this canal is in a really pretty place. Of course, nobody wanted to build next to this big, smelly ditch, so there were no houses there, and there's this path that connects a lot of different little towns. So today, it is an 84-mile, which I believe is 130 kilometers, long trail that connects Cleveland to Akron and other cities farther south. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. In the morning on a beautiful summer day, go ride my bike down the towpath. So through places like this or across, there's a couple of lakes where it does that. Really beautiful, great exercise, get out in the fresh air. And of course, all along the trail, places like this have been preserved. Little waterfalls, little beautiful places. I love it. Now, let's talk about sports. Sports are very important for Clevelanders. We'll see why in a second. But Cleveland and sports, well, Clevelanders love sports. I don't know if sports love Cleveland, but we are one of 16, 3 sports cities. So that means we have a baseball team, a football team, and a basketball team. So the Browns are our football team, the Indians are our baseball team, and the Cavaliers are our basketball team. So we'll start with Indians baseball, because I guess it's been the most successful Cleveland sport. Founded in 1901, one of the very first Major League Baseball teams in America. And it won the World Series. Of course only America plays it, but whatever. The World Series champions in 1920 and 1948. So, yes, keeping that long-time history alive. We call them the Tribe, the Indians. They play at, well, what we call now Progressive Field, and there's 81 home games every year. So in the summer, almost every day you can go to a baseball game. And you see, this stadium's big. At full capacity, I think you can put about 70,000 people in this stadium. So on a really good night, that's a lot of people. It's really fun to go to a game. You see, like, you can watch the sunset. Baseball's the kind of game that is best enjoyed with a beer and a hot dog and some friends. You can kind of not pay attention for an hour and then come back to the game. On a beautiful summer night, there's nothing better than a baseball game, I think. You don't even have to watch the game. The season's from April to October, so in April it can be cold and rainy and nasty, and it can be very cold in October too. I remember I was at a game in October, snow pounding, deluge, nasty. But normally it's a very nice time. And our main rivals are the Detroit Tigers and the New York Yankees. You've probably heard of the New York Yankees. We hate them. Next. So I love baseball. We have Browns football, which was founded in 1945, one of the first professional football teams in America. It won a championship in 1945, 1954, 1955, and 1964. So very successful, but there are no Super Bowl titles. So in 1967 is when the National Football League started its current championship title. So kind of from 1967 on is when we think about how good a team is. And well, the Browns have never won. A comic from Cleveland calls them the Factory of Sadness. They always get so close. They might win and then they find some way to lose every time, every single time. Their main rival is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pittsburgh is not very far away from Cleveland, maybe 2 hours away. A similar city. So, for 50 years, Cleveland and Pittsburgh have been competing. And it's intense. It's on Pittsburgh Steelers weekend. You need to be careful. Do not wear anything yellow. People will yell at you. That's the Pittsburgh color. Anyway.
You hate them, right?
Yes, hate them. Despise. They play at Browns Stadium, and there's 10 home games every year. The season goes from September to February. So really, football's a winter sport, professional football. And you see right here, this is the big stadium here. I think about 90,000 people can fit in the stadium, really big. Here's the lake. So somebody, when they were building this brand new stadium, they thought, maybe we should put a roof on the stadium. Maybe that would be a good idea. They decided, no, we don't need that. It would have been nice because, it gets so cold. That icy cold wind blows off the lake. You just sit there and freeze. For football games, very long, maybe 4 hours of just frigid. And the Browns lose, and you're just, why did I do that? So you get things like this. But Browns fans are tough and they are loyal. We haven't won anything in forever, but still, every single Sunday in the winter, that stadium is full. So we love our sports. We also have Cavaliers basketball. Maybe some people know the Cavs. Founded in 1970, have never won a championship. So close, several times. Our best years were 2003 through 2010. Maybe you know LeBron James, or have heard of him. LeBron James was awesome. He still is awesome. What can I say? He is from Akron, which is very close. So to have someone from our hometown who's so good play right in Cleveland, we were so close. And Clevelanders loved LeBron James. That stadium, or arena, I should say, was always full, about 25,000 people or so. Always. There's a lot of different home games, 41. People loved the Cavs. So much just spirit in Cleveland. Everybody said, this is the year. We're going to win something. We came so close, but never, no. And in 2010, there's, if you say to Clevelanders, the decision. We know exactly what you were talking about. When LeBron James left. And so Clevelanders now hate LeBron James because he left and the way he left. It just was Yoshi Cressy. And so all of this bad luck leads Clevelanders to think, are we cursed? So no championships since 1948, but Clevelanders fans are true and loyal. Tough and loyal, I should say. Clevelanders sometimes think that this is because of an Indian curse. See our mascot for the Cleveland Indians. Well, the Native American community doesn't like this. It's kind of a very politically incorrect representation. And there's a rumor that an Indian chief cursed Cleveland. And until we get rid of Chief Wahoo, we call him, as our mascot, Clevelanders and Cleveland teams will never win. Maybe. I don't know. Now, let's talk about a little bit of food real quick. We have about 10, 15 more minutes. Love food. So like I said, Eastern European immigrants have had a big influence in Cleveland. So traditional Cleveland food is like this. Pierogies, kielbasa, schnitzel, sauerkraut, corned beef, lots and lots of different either Eastern European or German foods. So this is a very normal thing to see in Cleveland, a cafe that says pierogies. These are nice. Yum, good. So when I came to Russia and had paninias, oh, we have these too. We eat them a little differently, but we eat these. More food, more food. So we have all these Eastern European immigrants. Well, starting in about the 1920s, a lot of African Americans moved to Cleveland from the South because there were jobs in Cleveland and there wasn't quite so much hate in Cleveland. So there's a huge African American community in Cleveland. In fact, Cleveland, the city itself, is I believe 80% African American today. So, wow, lots. And so there's this mixing of Eastern European food and Southern African American soul food. Oh, so good. So we have barbecue, fried chicken and fish, lots of places like that. And this gives us a true Cleveland classic, the Polish boy. Oh, this guy, oh my God. So that's kielbasa, covered in French fries, coleslaw, so like coleslaw is cabbage and carrots and mayonnaise, and barbecue sauce, just all together. It's so messy. This is how it needs to be. You cannot possibly eat it and stay clean. It's impossible. You need about this many napkins to be able to actually eat one of these. They're really good. We don't eat these every day. It would be, if you do, you will die, I think. They're terrible for you, but they are really good. Now, what do Clevelanders drink? Well, Cleveland has kind of a reputation of being a blue collar. So blue collar means working class, people in factories. So you work a long shift in the steel mill, you come home, pound a shot of whiskey, and chase it with a beer. That's kind of Cleveland reputation. Here's maybe a Cleveland breakfast. Here, eggs and I'm kidding, kind of. But today in Cleveland, we have a few really, really good small brewing companies. And my favorite and the most popular is Great Lakes Brewing. And this is a really, A, it's a great beer. And B, it's a lot about Cleveland pride. So their most famous beer, their first beer, was called Burning River. So we took the fact that our river burned and said, yeah, we own that. Also, every year around Christmas time, so starting in November, they make Christmas ale, which is one of the best things ever. First of all, it's very alcoholic. It's about 9% alcohol. And it's got cinnamon and honey and just, it's one of the best things ever. Well, people line up for these. They're so hard to find. Stores will have on their front, we have Christmas ale, and like 10 minutes later they have no more Christmas ale. These things cost, 6 beers cost $12. It's really expensive. Don't care, we still buy so much of them. It's a Cleveland tradition these days. Now, of course, from every city there are famous people, and Cleveland is like every city. Drew Carey is maybe one of our most famous people. He's a famous actor. He has or had a television show. Halle Berry, maybe some people know. She's from Cleveland. And in fact, the name Halle is not a normal first name. In fact, you'll probably never meet anyone else named Halle. Halle Berry is named that because in Cleveland there was a very famous department store called Halle's, big in the center of town. And, well, Halle Berry's parents said, oh, that's a nice name, and they named her Halle. So, and there's a man named Alan Freed, who no one has ever heard of, but you do know rock and roll. He's the man who invented the name rock and roll, rock. So, thanks, Cleveland. He was a disc jockey on local radio. A president, James Garfield, is from Cleveland. He was president in about 1840, a long time ago. Garrett Morgan, he invented the traffic light, the stoplight. Paul Newman, so an actor also famous for salad dressing. Superman is from Cleveland. Superman, well, the creators are from Cleveland, I should say. They drew him in a little tiny house, kind of in what is today a very bad neighborhood in Cleveland, and some people want to make a museum to Superman in that little house. It'll happen. Also, Jesse Owens, one of the most decorated runners or athletes in Olympic history, a black guy who, if anyone knows their history, beat all of Hitler's supposedly better athletes in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. So Cleveland is considered the birthplace of rock and roll, so we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's a very cool museum. Unfortunately, I've never been there. But it's a beautiful place. I love looking at it. Now, there's a lot of famous musicians in Cleveland, or from Cleveland. And we'll start with the sublime and go to the ridiculous. So, the world-renowned Cleveland Orchestra, one of the best in the world, absolutely. A lot of really excellent musicians live in Cleveland. There's a really good music school there. The OJs, an old soul band, great. 9 Inch Nails, maybe somebody knows them. Bone Thugs and Harmony, so a hip-hop group or R&B group. Kid Cudi, famous today, and this guy, Machine Gun Kelly, who is a rapper, and I think he's a good rapper. He's also very proud that he's from Cleveland, so he has, a Cleveland Interstate sign tattooed on his shoulder. He loves that. Anyway, in every city also, there's a few words. Like when I came to Vladimir, for a long time I could not figure out what was Pekinka. Well, no. So just like that, in Cleveland, there are a lot of words as well. For example, there's a Cleveland accent, a very specific Cleveland accent. We like to say all of our vowels like eh. So I had, and I was, and I'm an ant. So like that. So aunt, what some people say, in Cleveland is ant, like the animal. If somebody says, oh, just take the rapid, they mean, so Cleveland has a small metro system, we call it the rapid. Not the metro, not the subway, anything like that. The tree lawn. Do you know what a tree lawn is? See, it's a very Cleveland word. A tree lawn is the space between the street and the sidewalk. And what do you do with your tree lawn? Why do we have a word for that? It's where you put your garbage cans. So you'll see sometimes in the newspaper, today's a holiday, don't put your cans on the tree lawn. That's what that means. Clevelanders say down the way, which means in the center of the city, in usually bad neighborhoods is what I mean. Yeah, I went down the way the other day, it was real scary. Into a bad neighborhood. Clevelanders call soda, or what you would say limonade, we call it pop. It's a big cultural divide in America. Cleveland's solid pop territory. And there are a few words that are from the local, or the real local language, so Native American languages. So some of these words, people from out of town look at it and say, what? How do you say that? Cuyahoga, Geauga. Those are old Native American words. Cuyahoga is the name of the river. It means crooked river, because the river has a lot of bends. Geauga, it's the name of a county. It means raccoon, because, well, there are a lot of raccoons there. And there's a lot of those words that we still use today. You see them in place names. Anyway, any questions, guys?
Yeah.
Yes?
My question. You said that it's not a problem just to move to Cleveland and to buy an abandoned house. But is it easy to find a good job just in the shortest possible time to pay the bills and to support the house?
Good question. It depends, of course. I mean, on your education, your opportunities, how many people you know. It's not as easy as in like a city like New York. There's more jobs, of course. There's more competition, but there's more jobs. So, yeah, Cleveland definitely does suffer from a job problem. I don't think it's terrible. There's a lot worse places, but yeah, it's not
But
necessarily.
it's not easy, yeah?
Yes, yes. So, these people who buy these houses, well, that's kind of why it's not more common. If there were a lot of jobs and houses cost nothing, everyone would move there. So that's why houses cost nothing.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I believe because of this, most of the settlers are like freelance. They are artists.
Yeah.
It doesn't
So-
matter where they live, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. They're called urban pioneers even. And they move into, so a lot of them are artists, they're, freelancers, writers, creative people who need a lot of space, and it doesn't really matter where they live, and they don't make any money, so they need things very cheap. Other questions? All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.